Hello and welcome to Real Obscure. My name is Kevin H. Shaw, and in tonight's episode I'll be discussing an 80s sci-fi movie that combines social commentary, over-the-top violence and full-on robot action. That was released a year before Robocop. From 1986, it's the rampaging robot romp, Chopping Mall. Chopping Mall was directed by Jim Wynorski. A director and writer of low-budget movies, he was a frequent collaborator with the B-movie maestro Roger Corman. Indeed, it was Corman who gave him his break into filming, following an introduction through Wynorski's chance meeting with a fellow airline passenger who knew the producer. Initially working in publicity and as a screenwriter, Wynorski's first directorial role was on the movie The Lost Empire, which included a performance from Real Obscure favourite Angus Scrimm. You can check out the episode on Phantasm to learn more about that particular actor. Chopping Mall was only his second feature as a director, which was produced by Corman's then wife, Julie. Roger Corman was so impressed with the fledgling director's work that he hired him to direct Deathstalker 2, and over the years they collaborated on a number of other low-budget flicks. He later worked extensively with his friend and fellow filmmaker Fred Olen Ray, and in recent years has moved into making more family-friendly fare, such as Nessie and Me and A Doggone Christmas. However, he's not forgotten his exploitation roots and continues to make softcore adult parodies, including the Bear Witch Project series, The Hills Have Thighs, and the fantastically titled Paraknockers Activity. Initially, the movie, which as the title suggests is set inside a shopping mall, was to be filmed at the Beverly Center in West Hollywood, but it proved to be too expensive for the low-budget movie makers, and so the movie only uses exterior shots of the famous mall. The interiors, meanwhile, were shot at the Sherman Oaks Galleria, which you might recognise from Fast Times at Ridgemont High and Commando. The initial idea for the movie came about when producer Julie Corman struck a deal with Vestron to make a movie set in a shopping mall. Although that may sound like an odd directive, keep in mind this was the 80s, when the shopping mall was the place to be and be seen, and so Vestron no doubt wanted a movie that would appeal to the kids that had made these places their hangout spot of choice. Wynorski was given scripting duties and agreed on the proviso that he was allowed to direct. Partnering with his longtime friend Steve Mitchell, a writer who worked on the original Transformers, Gem and G.I. Joe cartoons, the two decided to do a sci-fi horror movie, with Wynorski modelling his antagonists after the robotic guardians of the 1954 movie Gog. More on them in a minute. So what's it all about? We open on a presentation from Securetronics Unlimited, a company that plans to revolutionise mall security through its use of Protector 101 robots. Armed with knockout darts, tasers, which, fun fact, take their name from the vintage sci-fi novels featuring Tom Swift and his electric rifle, Tom Swift's electric rifle TSER, the Protectors also have lasers which are intended for use in removing obstacles. And it doesn't take a genius to work out that those obstacles are going to be humans. As well as using robots, the new system also sees the mall being shut off with steel doors from midnight until dawn, obviously to keep people out. Although given the way doors work, that also means that anybody who is still on the premises when the mall closes will be trapped inside. The presentation scene features a cameo from Paul Bartel and Mary Woronov as two audience members. Apparently their comments were actually improvised by the two actors. The two appeared frequently in movies together, most famously in 1982's Eating Raoul, and they're reprising those roles here as Paul and Mary Bland from that movie. Now, as well as an extensive acting career, Bartel also had a number of directorial credits, including the Corman classic satire Death Race 2000. Mary Woronov was one of Andy Warhol's entourage and appeared in a number of his movies. She also appeared in Silent Night, Deadly Night and the aforementioned Death Race 2000, along with roles in Night of the Comet and Warlock. She most recently appeared in Rob Zombie's The Devil's Rejects and Ty West's House of the Devil. She is also a painter and sculptor and has penned a number of autobiographical books and fiction novels. The presentation ends and we're treated to, or more accurately subjected to, a montage of comedic moments representing a typical day at the mall. A child in an elevator is eating an ice cream. A crowd of shoppers fill the elevator, and when they exit, the child's ice cream is smushed all over him, because all the shoppers care about is, well, shopping. A server at the food court narrowly avoids having a tray of drinks knocked from her hand, eventually spilling them as she reaches their intended table. A kid plays a video game and his father drags him away, only to start playing it for himself. And a bevy of babes in bikinis, whoa, we're in the gnarly 80s, dude, ride on an escalator as a man carrying a number of boxes is so overwhelmed by these bodacious betties that he falls over and crushes his packages. Swing. It's really heavy-handed, like a lot of the humour, and is one of the most 80s things you will ever see. That is, until you see some of the cast's outfits. Anyway, at this point we're introduced to two of our protagonists. Alison is played by Kelly Maroney, and Susie is played by Barbara Crampton. Kelly Maroney began her career in television, appearing in the soap opera Ryan's Hope. She's probably best known for her movie career though, appearing in Fast Times at Ridgemont High, Night of the Comet, and as herself in the Meditation on the Human Condition, Scream Queen Hot Tub Party. Apparently Wynorski had a crush on her and cast her in the hopes that she'd fall for him. As a wise dog once said, the 80s was a wild place. Barbara Crampton, like Maroney, transitioned from soap operas to movies. Her breakout role in Body Double was sadly trimmed, although she's still in the movie, but she established herself as a horror actor, not a scream queen, she dislikes that term, with 1985's Reanimator, which I'm going to get round to covering someday, and its spiritual follow-up From Beyond in 1986, which I'm also going to cover soon. As well as acting, she also runs her own production company, and is still working to this day, with standout roles in such movies as You're Next, Tales of Halloween, Jacob's Wife, and the fantastic 80s throwback Lovecraftian body horror, Suitable Flesh. Alison and Susie are servers at a restaurant in the mall. As they deal with dodgy customers, an overbearing boss, and totally radical 80s dialogue, Susie discusses the planned party she's invited newcomer Alison to that night. She set her up with a date, who is totally not a slime dog, and tells her that it's going to be good times to the max. As the two women finish up their shift, we see the exterior of the mall as a storm brews. A lightning bolt strikes the building, and as we see in the security room, the protector robots come online of their own volition, killing the scientist monitoring them. We're then introduced to the rest of our cast. Ferdy, the nephew of the department store's boss, and his co-workers Greg and Mike, who are dating Susie and Leslie, plus their friends, married couple Rick and Linda. They've all decided to hold a party in the store after the mall closes, and Susie has invited Alison as a blind date for the nerdy Ferdy. let's have a quick cast rundown. Ferdy is played by Tony O'Dell. He played Alan in the ABC sitcom Head of the Class, Trace in the short-lived sci-fi series Otherworld, and also portrayed Jimmy in The Karate Kid Parts 1 and 2 and in the revival series Cobra Kai. Greg is portrayed by Nick Segal. He appeared in the college sex comedy School Spirit and Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo. Rick is played by Russell Todd. He appeared in Friday the 13th Part 2, He Knows You're Alone, and the Where the Boys Are 1984 remake. John Terlesky plays Mike. He's probably most famous for playing Deathstalker in Deathstalker 2 and from a slew of B-movie appearances. But he's since transitioned into directing, working on TV shows including The Rookie and The Blacklist. Linda is played by Carrie Emerson, who is known mostly for her TV work with guest spots in shows such as Fantasy Island, Dallas and The Jeffersons. But after these small roles she retired from acting at the end of the 80s. Susie Slater plays Leslie. Like most of the cast, Chopping Mall is probably her highest profile role, but she went on to appear in a few horror movies and softcore thrillers. Chopping Mall aside, she's probably most famous for a film she didn't even appear in, with her image being used on the cover of 1986's Sorority House Massacre. Anyway, as the mall closes for the night, the couples begin to party, i.e. drink beer, do some of the most 80s dancing you'll ever see, and then they all have sex, in the same room. The only exceptions being good girl Alison and nerdy Ferdy, who instead watch a movie on TV, while everybody has sex behind them. But when the Protector robots kill their second supervisor and begin eliminating anybody they still find in the mall, the group find themselves locked inside and are forced to try and survive in a battle against these unstoppable killing machines. Now, Chopping Mall is one of those movies that's just so close to being good, but just fails to live up to its potential. The dialogue is painfully dated. Yes, I know it's parodying the whole rad, gnarly, totally tubular slang of the 80s, but it is just not funny and it is so hard to watch. It also has a fantastic sense of parody that just doesn't quite hit the mark. Appearing a year before Robocop, this movie features a robot that responds to the simplest of transgressions with absolute ultra-violence. There's a scene where the Protectors completely destroy a store with their lasers, and it is so over the top and gratuitous that it is fantastic, mainly as it's just played completely straight. And the Protectors end each kill with a deadpan, "Thank you, have a nice day," that again predates Robocop. The idea of having robots who will murder people for being at the mall after hours, or for simply stealing from stores, is satirising a very heavy-handed approach that values things over people. I just wish Wynorski had had the experience to make this a more serious movie, as the rad gnarly dialogue and awful slapstick really throw the tone of what otherwise could have been a great satire. But that's enough negativity. Let's look at where the movie excels. For starters, the cast are solid. Crampton does a great job, and this is one of the few roles where she plays a scream queen, sorry Barbara, with Susie reacting badly to the whole situation and being that "we have to get out of here, we have to get out of here" character. And John Terlesky is fantastic as the cocky, self-assured jock Mike. He chews gum in every scene, with his mouth open in a grin that just makes you want to punch him, and his scenes are of particular note. The Protectors, or Killbots as they're called in the credits, which is a callback to the movie's original title, look great. They have a fantastic non-humanoid design and have a genuine presence to them, thanks to the production using actual physical props rather than miniatures. Kudos to Robert Short for his constructions, which actually, laser blasts aside, were able to perform the majority of the actions they're seen doing on set. And then there's one of the greatest exploding heads ever committed to film. One of our protagonists takes a laser blast to the head and it is glorious. I know everybody raves about the scanner's exploding cranium scene, but for me this is executed so much better. You can tell the production crew were really pleased with this effect, as it's actually used in the end credits as this character's literal headshot. Now I know humour is subjective and I did find the credits montage cringeworthy, but I will say that the movie also has some funny moments, and includes quite a few meta references. We've already mentioned an appearance from the Blands from Eating Raoul, who even quip about getting a protector bot to throw people out of their restaurant. But Dick Miller also makes an appearance playing Walter Paisley, which, if you're not familiar with, is his go-to character name, having initially played him in A Bucket of Blood, and then following up with a number of other Walter Paisleys in subsequent Corman movies. The gun store our characters raid is called Peckinpah's, a reference to the director Sam Peckinpah, who was known for his over-the-top depictions of violence, particularly in westerns. And at one point one of the characters takes refuge in a pet store named Little Shop of Pets, a reference to Corman's Little Shop of Horrors. In another scene, one character tells the Protector, Klaatu Barada Nikto, a reference no, not to Army of Darkness, but to the 1951 classic The Day the Earth Stood Still, that particular line being used to stop a robot from going on a homicidal rampage. These little Easter eggs are a lot of fun, and I'm sure there are many more that I'm missing. If you do spot any, let me know in the comments section. Anyway, we're at the point where we're going to discuss some of the movie's plot points, so it's time to head into the spoiler zone. So, as you'd expect, each of our protagonists is picked off one by the Protectors in a variety of rather gruesome ways. Of particular note is Susie's death, which features a gas explosion and a full body burn. It is really well executed, and for all the movie's comedic overtures, it's quite nasty, as she continues screaming long after the initial explosion, while her friends watch on in horror. We also see the fantastic laser to the head scene, with Leslie being on the receiving end, and there's a very cool drop sequence with Nick Segal falling 3 floors. Apparently Jim Wynorski tested the drop for himself from 2 floors and broke a rib. He kept that a secret though, as he didn't want them to call off the sequence. Although the group are able to destroy 2 of the Protectors, the remaining robot inflicts what looks to be a fatal head injury to Ferdy. Allison is left as the final girl and is able to lure the last Protector into the paint store, where, with a combination of paint and paint thinner, she is able to immobilise it. Its tracks lose traction on the slippery surface she's made. And then hurling a road flare into the chemical-laden store, she destroys the robot in a gout of flame. As she recovers from the blast, she sees Ferdy holding a really bloody towel to his head. The two embrace, and the movie ends. Now, as I mentioned, this isn't a great movie, but it's a movie that has moments of greatness. It's just a shame they're so few and far between. This is one of those movie projects that, with a tighter script and a little more in the way of budget or time to fully develop the project, could have been an absolute classic. I'm not normally one for remakes, although there are some exceptions where the remake exceeds the original, and I think this could be one such case. As I say, it's so close to being a really good movie, and with a few tweaks it could have been a fantastic sci-fi satire. But even so, it's still a fun 76 minutes, with some creative scenes, great looking robots, a few standout performances, and the usual B-movie highlights of boobs and blood. And just make sure you stick around for the end credits. There's a little sting there that you won't want to miss. Anyway, on that note, thanks for listening, and I'll see you all on the next Real Obscure. This episode of Real Obscure was written, edited, recorded, and given a totally bodacious makeover dude by me, Kevin H. Shaw. If you enjoyed the show, then please like, subscribe, share, and add a comment. To learn more about the show, please visit realobscurepod.com, and you can also email the show at hellorealobscure@gmail.com. I'm also on Blue Sky at realobscurepod, so I'd love to see you there. Chopping Mall is copyright 1986. All content is used here for educational and commentary purposes under Section 107 of the Copyright Act, Fair Use, and remains the property of the respective copyright holders. Presented here for the purposes of critique, commentary, and discussion. No copyright infringement is intended, so please don't make me have a cow, dude.